Yes, sir. Welcome back to Talking Nets, episode 94. Like in 94, when you saw OJ and the white Bronco on television, I don't remember seeing it, but I watched all those docs that they did on FX and, the OJ story. And I know now. And also in 94, MLB had a work stoppage. That's like the 1 year in the last 3 decades that they didn't have a World Series. And here's a little inside baseball. We're heading that way again. MLB will have another work stoppage real soon. My baseball fans listening know where I'm going with the collective bargaining agreement. But this is a basketball podcast. Welcome to Talking Nets. Keith McPherson and Hudson Flynn. Say what's up to the people, Hudson.
Hey, what is up? Leading in like it's a baseball podcast. All signs point to it being a Nets world. So what if the Yankees aren't playing? So what if baseball isn't playing? We got the Nets to talk about. And honestly, there's a lot to talk about. Like aside from obviously the Lakers game, what happened during the Lakers game, there's a lot to talk about. And I'm not gonna hold this back. I'm not gonna talk too much on the open. Let's just get right into it, Keith.
Yeah, this podcast couldn't wait. We're recording right now. It's about 2:30 on Monday. There's a lot going on, and honestly, we were planning on recording this after the game tomorrow, right? Every 2 games we try and hit you with a podcast, maybe 3, but the back and forth Hudson and I have been having on text, we're like, yo, we got to talk about this. We got to speak on this. And Saturday night, I even put out, hey, we're going to talk about this. So instead of, tweeting about it or putting on Instagram that we're going to talk about it, we're using the podcast to talk about this. And this is what the podcast is for. Talking Nets has become a fan brand on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. But the podcast is for Hudson and I, 2 Nets fans, and just 2 individuals with thoughts and opinions to speak more in length about whatever it may be. And there is some different topics that are going to come through this podcast that need to be spoken on. And I don't know, some people are new here. I don't know if you remember the episodes over the summer with some of the racially charged things that went on that crossed into the NBA. I don't know if you remember Hudson and I having real conversations when we thought the NBA was going to end, when the bubble got shut down. Real conversations this summer after George Floyd was murdered, and we didn't know what to do with our podcast when the NBA stopped. Real life stuff intertwines with the NBA, and the NBA doesn't shy away from it, and neither are we. So let's get right into it, man. The Nets are 36-17. Like I said, we're recording before the Timberwolves game tonight, which might not even happen. We'll get to that in a minute. So we're 36-17. We're tied for first in the East with the Sixers, who play the Mavericks tonight. Same record as us. We'll see what happens with that game, but they got us next. So if they lose tonight, we win tonight, and then they got to face us, we have a chance to have a little bit of a lead in the East. Hudson, what are you thinking about our prospects, our chances with this game tonight, and then the Sixers coming up real soon?
Yeah, and putting everything aside about, going forward, if this game does happen, obviously, look, the Nets are playing the worst team in the NBA, and the Sixers are playing a team that is not the worst team in the NBA, a team that has a chance to beat them, a team that has good potential, a team that has MVP caliber potential on that, on the court. So I could definitely see a situation where the Nets go into Wednesday up a game with a chance to go up 2. I think that would be huge. I think that would shut up a lot of the conversations that are being had in the mainstream media about the Nets and, can they not play against bigs? Look, if we're going up against Embiid and if we can figure out a way to stop him, and if LaMarcus can play, if Kyrie does play, the Nets are going to have a great chance to do so. It's going to be a fun game. It's going to be an exciting game. It's going to be an Eastern Conference Finals preview. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to see the Nets go out with hopefully 2 of their 3 superstars and just let the league know that, hey, okay, we lost a game. Don't get sour on us that quick. We're 20-5 in our last 25. We're doing just fine. And we can let the league know.
I think Harden should be back for that. His 10 days should be up by then. It's this Friday.
It's a 10-day reevaluation period. So I think he'll get reevaluated. Who knows? I want him to play. Obviously, we all want him to play.
They got to let him play.
Free our guy. Everyone's talking about how Allen Iverson had to get his jersey hidden so that the Sixers, couldn't stop him from playing when he was hurt, which is an awesome story. I hate the Sixers. Love that story. Feels like it's kind of the same way for James Harden. I know we saw Nash go out and talk about how difficult it is to tell him that he can't play when he's hurt, not with this injury, but with the one that he had prior to it. So I'm sure there's conversations being had within the Nets organization of, if we can't let James Harden play, that's going to be a tough conversation because he wants to play against the best team. He wants to play against the team that was like second in the James Harden sweepstakes, against a team that the Nets are going to play in Eastern Conference Finals. And it's going to be big, and it's going to be hard to keep him out of that game. But it does look right now that if they're reevaluating it, they might not let him go. And if they do let him go, it's on a minutes restriction, which just sucks.
Yeah, he wants to play against Daryl Morey. He wants to step out there on the floor and show people that, hey, the Nets are the team to beat in the East and the entire league. But the Nets are kind of saving him from himself. We all know Harden wants to play 40 minutes a night. We all know he wants that MVP. In our world, he is the MVP. So we'll see what happens with him coming back. But who won't be coming back tonight and who actually missed the second half of the game Saturday is one Kyrie Irving. If you're watching this on YouTube, I finally changed my board and it says, "We support Kyrie." Nets
That
world.
might have to be a shirt, Keith. I was going to text you that.
Yeah, we might have
to
to
on a shirt.
I might have to just put it on a tattoo on my face because I don't think people really get it. I don't think people understand. And we had a little back and forth on our Instagram where I was like, man, there's no way people can be this dumb. I put a post on Instagram, which I took from someone on Twitter, not for
a
the
Lakers
caption.
fan on Twitter.
A Lakers fan on Twitter. I don't care to shout him out, but I didn't think that our followers and the people that were in our community would think that we were somehow taking a shot at Kyrie by posting that. I cropped it and cropped the guy's name out. And I figured that people were smart enough to realize that wasn't a tweet from us and that they would focus on the video. And that video displayed what Dennis Schroeder and Kyrie's exchange was. We couldn't see it Saturday night in the bar. Shout out to everyone that came out to tailgate Brooklyn, the Nets fans, the Brooklyn fans, the hipsters, the drinkers, just the general people out there. Place was packed. Obviously, we're blessed and thankful to do our second live show. So we appreciate everyone that came out and supported us for that. But Saturday night, we couldn't tell exactly what went down. When I saw Kyrie going through the tunnel, I'm like, yo, what? Like he's visibly frustrated what went on. So we
posted his jersey in the crowd.
Yeah, it was bullshit. But we posted that post and someone was like, oh, you guys are clowns for like going against Kyrie, going against our point guard. And I'm like, I don't think there has been anyone besides me and Hudson, or I don't think anyone has supported Kyrie more than Hudson and I as far
more than
as
Talking Nets, the brand.
Period. It doesn't matter what it is. From his first leave to the saging to people talking about the mood swings last year, whatever it is, we understand Kyrie. We support Kyrie. We watched his lives. I don't know if you guys realize that I'm a Jersey guy. I'm a Duke fan. Kyrie and I have a lot of similarities, and I would love to speak on this situation with Kyrie because I feel this one personally. And in that exchange that him and Dennis had, the N-word was used. And there's so many ways that I saw this spun. But Kyrie came out, and I don't know if you guys saw Kyrie's tweet, but Kyrie came out and tweeted about it the day after. Kyrie came out and basically let people know why, not why he said what he said or why whatever happened, but clearing up any air for people on what went on and why he was so frustrated, I guess. So Kyrie writes, the N-word is a derogatory racial slur. It'll never be a term of endearment, reclaimed, flipped. In capital letters, he writes, never forget its foul and true history. Throw that N-word out the window right alongside all those other racist words used to describe my people. We are not slaves or ends. And as I'm reading this tweet, I'm seeing the quote tweets go up, the likes go up by the second, 8,000 plus quote tweets, 28,000 plus likes, approaching 5,000 retweets. And my comment underneath this has 164 likes and 15 replies. And I said, shake my head. I took the N-word out of my vocabulary years ago. It's not cool to say, nothing cool about it. I try to never even rap the word. Only way for it to be thrown out is to stop using it. Probably never happens because it's ingrained in our culture, but I feel you, Kai, keep speaking. Now let's talk about my experience with the N-word. When I was young, I used the N-word. It's just when you're around other black people, even when you're not around other black people. I grew up in a predominantly white area, and I have cousins that I would visit in the summer, whether that be in Jacksonville, Florida, where I have family, or whether that be, right in New Jersey where I have family. And the N-word is a word that it's used between family. It's used between neighbors and friends in the black community. It never was flipped. It was kind of like a stupid trick. I don't know what, black people might have thought they were going to do by using that word with each other, or trying to reclaim it. Because all it really ever did was give white people that phrase of, well, they say it all the time. Why can't I say it? Or, no, black people use it all the time. It's perfectly fine. And it's not perfectly fine. And what Kyrie is basically saying, with Dennis Schroeder, which, this kind of threw me off because Dennis Schroeder is German. The N-word is American. I don't know its exact origins, but I know it's an American word and term and used here. And there is no two words. I don't care if it's N-I-G-G-A or N-I-G-G-E-R. It's the same word. And the only way for it to be eradicated, which will never happen, the only way for it to disappear, which will never happen, is for black people to stop putting it in art, such as hip hop, stop putting it in culture, such as social media, movies, anything. And I fully support Kyrie on this stance. What I don't support is the NBA refs thinking that they could police something like this and then eject two guys that were going back. Double text. The first two ejections of these guys' careers. Hudson, what were you thinking when you saw this ref point and chuck these guys out of the game? It kind of was this weird thing for me because I'm like, that's something you don't understand. That's something you might have misinterpreted, and you just fucked the whole game up.
Yeah, and obviously, you know what I was thinking. We were there. We watched it happen together, and we were pissed off because on one hand, it was a close game. Nets were down 4. Kyrie was cooking. People saying Kyrie was getting cooked. Kyrie had 18 points on 50% shooting. He was going off. He was carrying the Nets like he has a lot of the time, especially with KD on a minutes restriction. So that was something right off the bat that I was like, shit. But to have the disrespect, putting the whole Dennis Schroeder thing aside and giving him a double tech, to have the amount of disrespect to give a straight up double technical to Kyrie Irving for talking, not for throwing a ball in the crowd, not for pushing another play, just for saying words, to give a superstar player a double tech. And I'm not usually one where it's like, superstars should get the foul call, superstars should get special treatment. But if you're going to give the benefit of the doubt to anyone and to not be too harsh on anyone, you don't throw out the person that's going to completely change the complexion of the game. And this has been a discussion that we've in the NBA community have been having for a long time. This goes all the way back to the bubble when we saw a Mavericks player get tossed. I forget whether it was Luka or Kristaps in the bubble, and that completely changed the complexion of that game. And it's just, it sucks from that perspective. But for the ref to get involved in a discussion that is not his own, and that honestly looked like it was just a discussion. When you see the video, Kyrie got called that, and he took exception to it, but he didn't get into Schroeder's face. He didn't, use his body. He didn't use his hands. He didn't use anything. And for the ref to get involved in that just seems like an overreach of authority, and something that really needs to be discussed within the NBA. And the NBA, they get most things right. They get a lot of things right, but it's looking like they've got a refereeing problem, not with referees making bad calls, not with anything like that, but with referees kind of overreaching their authority and overestimating their importance in the game.
This was a nationally televised game between the two teams that people have been talking about as the favorites since the bubble ended. This is a nationally televised game that the world is watching. And this one ref decided to eject both point guards. Well, obviously Kyrie's our shooting guard, but two guards that heavily impact the game. Both of these guys were going off. I get the narrative of, oh, Dennis was cooking Kyrie. He wasn't just cooking Kyrie. He was cooking anybody in front of him. He was having his way, whether it was Nick Claxton switching on him, blowing by him, whether it was shooting a three. Like, Dennis Schroeder was playing great. Now, I don't subscribe to the notion that he got under Kyrie's skin. What I think got under Kyrie's skin was, I'm not your friend. I'm not your homie. Don't say goddamn N-word to me like we're cool. We're not friends. And he said, don't call me no N-word, bro. And this is coming from Dennis Schroeder. Like I said, a German with a German, with a German guy saying that to you, and as deep as Kyrie thinks, it probably twisted his mind up. Like, you're from Germany calling me the N-word, an American word, an American derogatory term that has been used to disrespect my people for hundreds of years now. Like what is going on here? And for this ref to step in and decide, you guys are out of here in the start of the second half, That's ridiculous. Luckily, it's a regular season game. We do expect the NBA to figure it out and lead and do the right things and maybe have a conversation about this, because we absolutely can't have this in the bubble. I think it was Kristaps that got thrown out in that Clippers game, and then it changed the complexion of the game for the Mavericks. And it's like, let these guys play. Yes, I know they say the N-word on court a lot. They say a lot of things on court. Going back to the Mavs, we remember when, in the Mavs Clippers series, Trez said, "Oh, bitch ass white boy, punk ass white boy," something like that to Luka. And people made a big fuss about it because of the racially charged times we were in. I remember seeing Jay Williams coming out like, you can't be saying that, especially with all the racism we're dealing with. Whatever. They're in the heat of the moment in competition. Let these guys play and say whatever they want. No, it isn't the first time Kyrie has ever been called the N-word. No, it isn't the first time he's heard it on the court. But something might have tweaked him by a black German saying it to him that we don't know their relationship. Maybe they have zero relationship. And I just don't think Kyrie should have been thrown out of the game. I don't think Schroeder should have been thrown out of the game. So I can't look at this game that seriously. I can't take too much from this game. The Nets lose this game. What was this game? 53 out of 72. Nets lose to the Lakers 126-101. Before we get into, I guess, the X's and O's and Jimmy's and Joe's, James Harden's and Joe Harris's, Hudson, do you have anything else to add to this N-word conversation? The part the refs played, Dennis Schroeder being German, Kyrie maybe taking it the wrong way. Who knows? Do you have anything to add to this conversation? Because this is an important conversation we're having.
Look, if there's any part of this conversation that I can step into, being the white teenager that I am, it's the role that the referee played. And the role that he played was an overreach. It was an overstep of both his authority in the game as well as his authority on the subject. And he is not in a position to get himself involved in this discussion in the way that he did. He is not in the position to punish Kyrie Irving for reacting in the way that he did. He is not in a position to punish Dennis Schroeder for saying the things that he said. That is an overreach. It's an overstep, and it shouldn't have been done.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Last thing I'll say on it is black people, white people, don't give that word any power. I'm asking you to take it out of your vocabulary. I know I can't control anyone's mouth but my own, but I grew up and matured into the man that I am, where I don't call anyone the N-word. I don't even rap the word. But I also matured to the point where I don't bug out anymore. I've definitely gotten into fights. Like I said, I grew up in a predominantly white area. I definitely got into some hand-to-hand fights and some situations over a word. And as I got older, I realized you can't give words power. You can't let somebody say something and then it tweaks you and then you're putting yourself in a bad situation. So we support Kyrie. I understand where he's coming from with it. And I hope he used this opportunity like he did to maybe educate some people, maybe change some of these young people, even in our Talking Nets, not Talking Nets, but even in our Nets chats. Like one of the Nets chats we were in, the title was Nets N-word. And I'm looking at the chat and I'm like, I don't know how these like young white kids think that it's okay to like say the N-word, but I do, because it's like a cool word. It's like a cool word that you put at the end of a sentence. It's like something trendy and cool to make you sound cool, but you don't sound cool. You sound stupid. Let's move on. Game 53 of 72, Saturday night in Brooklyn. We had a live show. We had a pregame show, and I was talking cash shit. I saw Wesley Matthews wasn't playing. Kuz wasn't playing. We already know AD and LeBron aren't playing. I'm like, Nets by 20. I think I even said it on the show. Nets by 20. Somebody probably watched our live stream and was like, these guys were wrong, terrible take. But we're Nets fans. And if anyone listening to this podcast or following us on any platform doesn't get that, we are biased Nets fans, our world, Nets world. And going into this game, we thought we had the upper hand, but the Nets came out and punched us right in the mouth. They started early. I was sitting there surprised at how fast they had the lead, and the lead grew. The Nets had won 9 straight at home and 18 of their last 20 at the Barclays Center. So I'm thinking Saturday night, we see Durant's mom in there. They're starting to let more people in. The tickets were ridiculous. I told people, don't even go to the Barclays Center. Come to chill with us at Tailgate Brooklyn. And this game got out of hand, but it got out of hand in the first, and we came back in the second. That was a close game at half. That game was not out of hand at half, where we were thinking, yo, we have a shot here. We were thinking, second half, different half. I don't know. Hudson, what were you thinking when, let's talk about the first half. What were you thinking when the Nets came out, or the Nets came out flat, but the Lakers came out pretty fast, And it was like they were asserting themselves, whether it was Drummond or Markieff Morris or HT or Schroeder. Schroeder was doing his thing. Like we said, him and Kyrie, I think he had like 19 in the first half and Kyrie had 18.
Yeah, they were battling, and obviously the Nets got punched in the mouth to start, but they were coming back. They were making it a game. And to me, it kind of played out like you see a lot of college games play out, where you see one team, the blue blood, has all the 5-star recruits. They got a deep bench, and they get punched in the mouth a little bit because they walk in with some confidence. They walk in knowing that they're the better team with the better players. But, that young, scrappy team, and that really was what the Lakers were, a scrappy team. They didn't have their superstars, came in and they fought and they punched the Nets in the mouth. But I saw it as going the way that those college games usually go. The team that has all of the blue bloods, the team that has all the good players, the good recruits, has too deep of a bench, and they can just run them ragged, and you can't run out the players. Like, you couldn't play Schroeder in 40 minutes a night. Obviously, he got ejected, which completely changed the complexion of the game. Same with the Kyrie getting ejected. It was a 4-point game at the time. But the Lakers were making Schroeder play through what looked like a pretty significant tailbone injury. And he got completely, I was going to say bodied by Blake, but it was mostly the fall. He fell on the court, hit himself right on the tailbone, and it was clear he was in pain. And that's the kind of pain that, like, I don't know if you've ever had a tailbone injury. They mess you up. Like, you can't walk. It's really difficult. Every time you move, it hurts. And he was clearly in pain. So I got to give credit to him for playing. But the Lakers were shorthanded. I thought the Nets were going to come back. But to me, the game really turned into what ended up being a Lakers blowout. When Kyrie got ejected, you could see it took the life out of the team. You could see that it took some of the fight out of the Nets. And combining that with the fact that Kevin Durant was playing on a minutes restriction, looked a tiny bit rusty, was making some pretty errant passes, it just didn't end up working out well for the Nets. It's game 53 of 72.
Whatever.
Okay. The Nets lose. On to the next.
Good for the Lakers fans. Good for the Lakers fans because they were taking L's.
Good for the Lakers fans.
They've dropped to fifth. They've dropped to fifth in the standings. The 2 nights before they lost to the Heat. Good for Lakers fans. At half, it was 61-58. A bucket changes that. And like you said, momentum swung when we lost Kyrie because the whole team is like, are you kidding me? Like, those guys are on the court. They heard what was going on. And when you throw out a guy that's going to give us 40, it's like, come on, that's a huge disadvantage. And you guys are changing the whole game, and that's not fair. It shouldn't have been that way. But yeah, the Lakers were going back to back. Win one game, lose one game. Win one game, lose one game. So good for their fans. They got to win, and they could celebrate on Twitter and say Lakers in 4. But these regular season games have nothing to do with the playoffs. Lakers fans and the Los Angeles Lakers got to worry about getting out of the West. They got to worry about meeting us if they are going to meet us.
They got to worry about getting there. They got to worry
about getting there first. And I know LeBron called Adam Silver like, hey, we got to get Kai out this game because he's getting fired up. And when Kyrie gets mad, he could go off for 30 in the second half. And we didn't get to see that. But good for Ben McLemore, brand new Laker. Good for
he had the Ben McLemore game, hitting
Horton
all of his
Tucker.
threes, whatever. Honestly, coming into this podcast, I didn't even want to talk about this game that much, just because, like, whatever. The Nets lose. I don't think there's that much to take away from it. People are trying to read into how well Drummond played. Okay. LaMarcus Aldridge didn't have his best game. Okay. All the four ones before that were good. Fine. Let's watch him against Embiid, see how he does. This has nothing to do with how the Nets are going to play in the playoffs. This has nothing to do with how they're going to play against Giannis. Nick Wright, shut the fuck up. Honestly, the only thing that got me heated was the fact that this game served as kind of the backdrop for the conversation that was had yesterday into this morning about Kyrie Irving and him missing this Timberwolves game for personal reasons. If it gets played, of course, as we're recording this, it's 3:02 right now. Woj just said that the game may get postponed. The NBA is currently discussing it in the wake of the police shooting that happened in Brooklyn Center in Minnesota, Minneapolis. So who knows what's going to happen with that, but it served as the backdrop for Kyrie, making his decision that he was going to miss this game for personal reasons. And I think we should talk about that because I saw quite a bit of nonsense on the timeline when it comes to people talking about Kyrie Irving.
I mean, I just was about to say, okay, enough talking about the Lakers game. Let's get back to some real talk. Kyrie is out for personal reasons tonight. Hudson was on Twitter, and I think our guy DJ, who's a Nets fan, Nets Twitter, tweeted out about Ramadan and the prayers. And I don't know if you guys know anything about being Muslim. I saw a tweet. Someone said Kyrie's not really Muslim, and that shit bothered me. Like,
Yeah, you're not. No one is in a
like
place to say that about anyone's religion, especially someone you
someone
don't
you've
know.
never seen,
And that's a trend.
someone
That's a
you've
trend.
never met. Oh, he's not really Muslim. You don't know what he practices. You don't know what his faith is like. And you probably don't even understand what that faith is like. Here's an example of me learning what that faith is like. I have a friend that's Muslim. And I think in August, there's another holiday where they fast. And now I'm blanking on it. It's not Ramadan. But I wanted him to go to a DJ event with me. I was like, yo, come to this party. I got a DJ tonight. I don't want to do it by myself. It's, it's a backyard barbecue. There'll be food, drinks. He was like, free food and drinks? He's like, well, I'm in... I'm going to look it up now so I can get, I'm going to get the name on this. So I'm not,
It could have been Eid. It also could have been Ramadan. Ramadan usually falls in the summer more often.
Okay. It's official. Yeah. Ramadan. So I think it was Ramadan back then that started August 1st or something. It was Ramadan.
It's on the lunar calendar. So it does fall in the summer pretty often. So that could happen.
So me being young, and this being my friend, the night before this, I went to sleep and I was like, yeah, no problem. I'll do this with you. I woke up the next day. I didn't drink or eat anything. I waited with him at this party until the sun went down and we made our plates and both of us crushed like 3 or 4 plates of like backyard barbecue food and like 6 beers each. And the way that I felt, I'm like, I'm never doing that again. And he looked at me like, man, I've been doing this my whole life. This is, what my family does. This is part of our religion. This is how I was raised. We have to do this. And he explained some of the sacrifice and some of the reasons behind why they do this. And if you don't know any of that, please don't speak on someone missing a basketball game in Minnesota against the worst team in the league, potentially to participate in something much bigger than basketball or a job or a game or sports.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's so much hate for Kyrie Irving, and we've talked about this and we know this. But the trend is that people speak on him like they know him, like they were friends with him, like they know what's going on in his life, like they know what's going on in the locker room. The amount of people I saw with either, a photo of LeBron as their profile picture, like some team's logo, or just even a black logo, or the egg logo, speaking about what is going to happen in the Nets locker room because Kyrie is missing a game against the Timberwolves. The fact that we saw Stephen A. Smith wake up this morning, who gets paid to spout this nonsense. So I guess I'll give him a little bit of a pass, but no, I won't, because he came out with a statement and he said, Kyrie is hurting the team like he always says. But then later in the day, he goes on Twitter and he says, I was recently made aware of the reason Kyrie is missing. He didn't say the reason. A lot of people are speculating that it's because Ramadan starts on Tuesday. And depending on how you practice, some of the prayers could have fallen right before the game. Because of their practice, certain people who practice could have prayers during the prayer times in Mecca. So all of that stuff aside, the fact that you can go out and make a statement and then retract that statement partially, but still get the credit from it, still get the views, still get the likes, all that stuff is really it's nonsense.
Corny, bro. It's bogus, bro.
And to disrespect this person in the way that he's been disrespected is just so disappointing to see from other people. And honestly, at this point, I don't expect much from other people. I really don't, especially when it comes to Kyrie. And as the Talking Nets Twitter in particular has grown bigger, I've seen whole varieties of people saying Kyrie. At this point, going back to the previous conversation, there's a lot of white people that are probably it would just be quicker for them to call him the N-word and move on with what they're saying. It's just ridiculous. And it hurts to see that someone who really has been magical for the Nets this season, has been great without Harden, without KD. Go back to the Knicks game last week and see what he did to the Knicks, dropping 40. He has been an amazing player for this team. He's averaging close to 30 points. So from a purely basketball perspective, there better not be any Nets fans that are complaining about him missing a game against Minnesota. And if you're an NBA fan and are so bent out of shape over this, you're having some kind of fake righteousness, some fake.
He's allowed to do this for the 1,000th time. It's in his contract. The Nets know about it. It's not new. It's not sudden. It's not unexpected. For all we know, he might have had a calendar of these things lined up internally. You're not privy to that information. Shut the fuck up.
You're not in the locker room. Can I tell you, you're not in the locker room. You don't know why Kyrie's missing this game. You don't know how it's affecting the team. You don't know anything. But you're hating on him because he is the popular, easy person to hate on because he does things that 99% of the other of the rest of the league doesn't do. Or what if you had a real job? What if Kyrie was working at 9 to? He's not.
He's not. He's
not
freak.
a normal person.
He's
not even a normal NBA player.
Seen.
He's a top 10 NBA player. He's not even a normal NBA player. Don't compare him to you working your 9 to 5 because you're mad that you can't get PTO. Clown
anyway,
shit.
LaMarcus Aldridge will also be out in this game tonight with a non-COVID related illness. And we just learned that the Minnesota Twins canceled their game against the Red Sox today. Minnesota is burning again. Deja vu. And like I said in the beginning, like maybe some of you didn't listen to this pod yet in June. Maybe you didn't listen to this pod yet over the summer when the bubble paused and we weren't sure what was going on with Jacob Blake and the Bucks not wanting to play. Well, something else could happen with the Minnesota Timberwolves tonight. So we're going to see. In the event that happens, we recorded this podcast before the game, and we'll come back after the game with our thoughts on whatever happens with the Nets and Minnesota tonight, and we'll play some voicemails, and we'll close this thing. So give us, I don't know, a few hours. If you're listening to the spot, it's just going to be a transition. It'll be a couple seconds, and then we'll say we're back. But to lighten the mood out here, I have to flex one thing and try and bring this podcast energy up. Kevin Durant followed us on Twitter. Oh
my God. I didn't know if you were going to mention it. I wasn't going to mention it. I didn't want to go out and mention it.
I am. He's not taking that follow back, bro. He's so calculated with his Twitter and his everything he does. I knew, man. Shout out to Eddie Gonzalez if Eddie is listening. We had Eddie on the podcast, and I knew as soon as we got Eddie, I was like, yo, we're 1 degree of separation away from Kevin Durant. KD hit that follow button. So shout out to all our day ones, Talking Nets fam. You guys help us get on KD's radar, and we're here now, and we're just working on things. We're doing live shows. We still got new merch out there. We're planning and preparing for this playoff run and what we want to do with that. So, we started this pod off really serious because there were some serious things to talk about with the N-word and Kyrie and Ramadan and his practice. And then even now with this Minnesota incident, a cop kills another young black person unarmed.
Dante Wright.
It's like Dante Wright. It's like this world, not even this world, this country, United States of America hasn't learned anything. It's the same stuff, history repeating itself. And we're not afraid to talk about it. That's why we have this platform, and we appreciate y'all listening. We'll take a real quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk about whatever happened in this Timberwolves game. Okay. That wasn't a long break at all because
it wasn't ever going to be one for you, but it was a short one for us.
Yeah, for you guys listening to the podcast, we just stopped. I guess we told you we started this podcast at 2:30. It is now 3:30 p.m. We took a break, and as we took the break, we get news that the game is canceled. We knew it was going to be canceled. They canceled Major League Baseball. They're going to definitely cancel the NBA. Hudson, now let's close this podcast and just talk about what's going on again, man. It's bigger than basketball. It's bigger than you and I. It's bigger than this podcast. The fact that this is going on, and these cops still think that they can bullshit and cover it up and make things up and act like the public isn't like it's actually a joke. Like everything that we went through in 2020, like I guess that wasn't real, but shit just got real again. 2020 was a simulation. I guess people learned nothing. So here we are looking at ourselves in the mirror again. We can't watch baseball. We can't watch basketball. And who is the main one that used to say this? Like I just was saying this. I said, we don't deserve sports. I was tweeting from my Twitter. I lost probably a couple hundred followers over the summer from the stances that I took, saying we don't deserve sports. Sports are the reward of a functioning society. We force sports back through COVID, and we force sports back through people being murdered, innocently murdered. Something has to stop. Things need to change. And this is how you get people's attention. You hurt people's pockets. And when I say people, the people in power, the people in control, the people that can make real change. A-Rod just bought the Minnesota Timberwolves. Do you think him and that group aren't like, wait, what's going on? Everyone is paying attention right now This podcast will be out today before the game was going to tip off. Hudson Flynn, do you have anything to say before we wrap this thing up?
Well, I got to echo what you said. Like, we don't deserve sports. And what I think this should be taken as for everyone in this society, but particularly the people in power, like you mentioned, is just use it as a time to reflect. Use it as a time to think about things without a distraction. There's no sports on. And we talked about it over the summer. We've talked about it since we've been doing this podcast, but I know a lot of you, maybe even most of you, this podcast has grown tremendously, weren't here when we were talking about everything that happened over the summer, almost a year ago now. But you have to take time and you have to reflect. You have to think about it. You have to reflect on what you can do to help make change. You have to think about what you can do to just know your place in society and how you can help fix these things, whether it's supporting Black-owned businesses, whether it's voting, whether it's, making your voice heard in a way that maybe some other people can't. Whatever platform you have, you should use it. And that's what we're doing right now. And we're obviously blessed to have this platform. We worked for, we made sure that we had enough followers and people listening so that when we had important things to talk about, things beyond basketball, things beyond sports, that there'd be people here to listen to it. And that's what we have to do now. And that's what, as a country, we have to spend our time doing. The story can't be, Kyrie sitting, did Drummond, ruin the Nets' chances by going to the Lakers. It's none of that. It's what does our country come to when something like this happens so frequently? What does our country come to? I was texting with my family and we were talking about this. And when, I first said things about it, I mentioned in passing that there was another police shooting, and they asked if it was having to do with the arrest of the soldier in his full military fatigues that, we just found out that he got fired for after the tape came out. But I was like, no, it's someone else. And the fact that there is someone else, the fact that there's so many names that they're getting hard to remember, that the list is so long.
It's regular.
It's just commonplace. Disappointing. It's becoming commonplace, and it has become commonplace, and it's too regular. And
this is America.
This is good. This is good though, because the NBA stopping, the sports league stopping, for whatever reason they're stopping, people are going to say, oh, it's because there might be riots, whatever. It shows that this isn't normal, that society cannot continue when things like this happen, that things that we do for fun, for pleasure, cannot continue when these things happen. And if there is any silver lining to take away from this terrible, tragic situation, it's that we can take this time to look at ourselves and truly reflect on what it means to be an American, what it means to live in this country, and just what we can do.
Yeah, man. I mean, it sucks. We got to mention that too. The Black Army lieutenant who sued the Virginia cops and, pulled him over, pepper sprayed him, struck him. And it's like, yo, the like abuse of power, I can't take it anymore. And I know you guys that have listened to this podcast from the jump understand my position as a African-American male, as a Black man in this country, and someone with a voice, someone with a little bit of followers and platform. I learned in 2020, it is not enough to be an exceptional person. It is not enough to just do the right thing. You have to speak out, and I will always speak out. This will forever be a part of my existence. I don't care that people follow me to hear about the Yankees and Nets. I'm a real person. This could be me. I could be the next person in a news story. I could be the next person you read about. I'm tired of it. All right, man, let's wrap it up. That's it, yo, because it's going to get real. It's already getting real on the tweets. It's already getting real. Like, make sure y'all say his name. Here we are again. Say her name. Say his name. Dante Wright. Shake my head, bro. Like, people don't want to learn. They don't want to listen. People thought it was over, getting Trump out of office. No, it's never over. It's an ongoing fight, an ongoing battle. And that's why we support someone like Kyrie. Y'all want to tear Kyrie down for nonsense. Kyrie been out here fighting this fight. And for me, I'm glad we did the podcast now, because I wouldn't have wanted to do it tonight. Because you know what? I'm the type of person, I dive into this stuff head on. I want to get all the information. I want to know what happened. I want to know what these cops tried to pretend to do, what they tried to say, how they took this situation the wrong way. I want to know. I'm an American. And like I said, I'm a young Black man. I'm at risk. I'm in danger every day that I step out of my house. So that's some real talk for y'all. Sorry that, there's no game to talk about. We weren't expecting this, but we were. We came into this podcast recording in the afternoon because we thought there might be a chance after the Twins game got canceled that there wouldn't be a Minnesota Timberwolves basketball game, and now there isn't. So Some people, once again, owe Kyrie an apology. And you need to take the time to have these real conversations. Usually we say, follow us and subscribe and all this. You know what? Send this link to a friend. Send this episode to a friend. Send this to somebody that needs some real talk, and they might not know how to go about getting it. They might not know how to go about those conversations, but they can listen to a Nets podcast and maybe take it in that way and do some serious like self-reflection and thinking and figuring it out, because we got a long way to go out here. And it's unfortunate that here we are in 2021 still watching the same things go on. That's all I got. Let's go Nets, Brooklyn.